Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear us and see us well. Um, I think we can start because we already have quite some participants. So welcome to this session on water, peace and security, innovation to action. My name is Audrey Lega. I work at Deltares and I'm a member of the Water, Peace and Security Partnership. And I'm happy to be your moderator for this session. So this is the last day of the Stockholm Water Week, and I hope you had all a productive week on this important World Water Week on the topic Water for Peaceful and Sustainable Future, which is obviously at the heart of, at the core of WPS, Water, Peace and Security Partnership activities. I will just check if you can hear me well. Okay, I see some people nodding. Thank you. Okay, so this session is co-organized by the Water, Peace and Security Partnership, the Stockholm International Water Institute, the International Federation of Red Cross, as well as the government of the Netherlands. And thank you so much for your efforts to prepare this session. We have some technical issues with one of the speakers who will join us later, but we hope that everything will run well, and we are confident that everything will be loud and clear. Okay, so to start with this session, let me welcome for some opening remarks Maarten Gisler, who is Water Advisor at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from the Netherlands. Maarten.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I hope that you can all hear me. So welcome to this session on the last day of World Water Week. It seems much more than a week ago that we saw the images of the photographer at the opening session that showed us what the consequences can be when groups do not manage to keep the peace and move into conflict. And I thought those were very powerful images, and I think they showed very well what the Water, Peace and Security program tries to avoid. It showed us the cost of conflict and how visible that is today, but also you can only imagine what the consequences of the conflict today are for the future and sometimes, for generations. So I think over the past 3-4 days, we've seen many examples of cooperation, but we have also seen, and I've experienced that myself, how difficult it sometimes is to understand one another across different groups, different sectors, across borders. We all speak water in one way or other, but we do so in different ways, and we don't always understand each other. So I think there are many linkages between water, conflict, peace building, cooperation, and those links, they work in different directions. Sometimes it's causal. Sometimes water can be a cause. Sometimes water can be a consequence. Sometimes it's a contributing factor. And all those linkages, they play out in different arenas and at different levels. Some very local, some national, some even cross-border, some between sectors. And so the question is, can we, if we better understand the dynamics of such conflicts, does that help us then also to act in a way that helps us move away from conflict and move towards cooperation and towards sharing? Because yes, there are many situations of too little, too much, or too dirty water, but it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. Over and over again, I think experience and evidence shows that, meeting the needs of one group, one sector, one country doesn't have to be incompatible with meeting the needs of another group, a sector, or country. So I think it also indicates that water, conflict, cooperation, peace, It's a very complex dynamic, which you cannot approach from a single sector perspective. It requires a very broad view, and I think the consortium that came together in the Water Peace Security Initiative that we have supported for the past years has brought together many of those different um, skills and competencies and understandings in the area of a lot of analytical capabilities, but also a lot of capabilities in the sphere of conflict prevention, mediation, education, communication. So in that sense, I'm really looking forward to hearing this session and see and hear the experiences of the program in different countries. It has started in Mali, where it works very much at a local level between different groups. It has moved on to other countries, to Kenya, to Ethiopia, to Iraq, where we will hear, how sometimes it's between farmers and herders, sometimes it's between between different layers of government that do not communicate well, where sort of national level interests are conflicting with more regional or provincial level needs and plans. So I would like to welcome you all to this session, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing the contributions from the different speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin. Thank you for your opening words and highlighting also those many linkages between water, peace, and cooperation. Definitely a lot that we still have to work on. And to continue on this and to better understand also the nexus between water development and peace, I am glad to welcome also Anders Jakerskog, who is program manager at the World Bank and focal point on transboundary water, to exactly also set a bit the scene for us before we can dive into more discussion. So yes, Anders, could you please share your thoughts with us on this nexus?
Okay, thank you very much, Audrey. Pleasure to be here and introduce this topic. It's good to be following my friend Martin. He's already highlighted several of the issues I was going to touch upon, but let me see if I can build upon that. I will try to share my screen here. Bear with me 1 second so we can see if we can get that going. And Audrey, if you can let me know if you see this.
Yeah,
it's good.
Perfect. We see
Okay,
it.
great.
We hear you.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to talk about the water development and peace nexus. And I work for the World Bank. The World Bank is a development institution. We've been in the business of supporting development outcomes, poverty reduction for decades. What we've seen over the last, I'd say, several decades is that we cannot really achieve development outcomes in the best way unless we also look at challenges to peace, so meaning conflict, and also look at security issues, because all of this is connected in several ways. I will talk a little bit about this, and I will start to talk a little bit about water and conflict, some of the reasons why water is a conflict, but also how water can be used in a conflict as well. But then also, and the idea here, as I understand it, is to try to see how water can also be a source of peace, whether it's between countries, whether it's within countries, between communities, and so on and so forth. Obviously, it's a lot to cover in only 10 minutes, but I will try to give a few snapshots on this topic. So we've been doing analytical work and looking at sort of the dynamics between water and fragility. And here I'm talking about the sort of water and conflict. And what we often observe is a bit of a vicious cycle. You have water insecurity, perhaps lack of water, not water at the time you need it, too much water, too little water. All of those are aspects of water insecurity. And that can lead to a weakened social compact at the national level. If you don't have the water to deliver the services, whether it's water supply or water and sanitation, the social contract starts to wither. So that's one key aspect of basic service. And that in itself can then compound fragility further, which further aggravates the challenges of water management. And let me go a little bit more into the details. I won't go into all of it here, but highlight some of the challenges that this brings. And in a fragile context, in a country that does not perhaps provide all the security that its citizens expect, and perhaps do not also provide the basic services that including water and sanitation, but also other services, then citizens do not necessarily see the state as the provider, which it often rightly believe that they should be, but often they see perhaps non-state actors, whether those are groups within a country, whether it's international community through humanitarian agencies, etc., that provide and deliver the services. Then the shift in the country can lead to a weakened social contract, which in itself may weaken the ability of the country in itself to raise taxes and sort of those things that are needed to provide those services. So it often leads to a vicious cycle. And let me also touch here upon one other aspect, and this is one I primarily work with, and that's the transboundary water management and how that links to both conflict and then potentially peace. That's we believe at the World Bank that in order to provide water services and water supply, water sanitation, and so on and so forth at the national level, countries need to work with their neighbors on having a secure access to the water that they will need. Of course, this is more important in regions where there is water scarcity. But having functioning cooperative arrangements on transboundary water management becomes crucial to provide those services at the national level. It's also a way to avoid conflicts at the state-to-state level. You will have heard many or seen headlines talking about that water would lead to war, conflict, and so on and so forth. While that might be true, what we see through the work of actors such as the Oregon State University, that most of the interactions over transboundary water management tend to be somewhat cooperative. But what I think we've seen also in the literature shows us that we often see a bit of conflict and cooperation at the same time. But how can we swing this to become more and more of cooperative measures? And those are challenges that we are dealing with at the World Bank, but also many other agencies and actors in this space. So I wanted to talk about, this is sort of the flip side of a crisis or a conflict. Conflict also means, and crisis also means, and this has a double meaning in Chinese, it's danger and it's opportunity. So how can we transform some of those challenges into perhaps pathways for peace from a water perspective? We're just starting in the World Bank, and this is something that will get off the ground. Well, it's getting off the ground now, but it's likely a 2-year process where we are going to look how water can be a pathway towards more of a peaceful outcomes, and seeing the role of water in that, because of course we realize that water is not the one and only thing, but how can we better understand and also devise programs following that improved understanding of water as a contributor to peace. So these are some of the things that we are sort of thinking about, and how we can better understand. So I won't go through all of this here, but the PowerPoint will be available. But we're going to be looking at well-functioning government. That's really the flip side of what I was talking about here, where government is fragile. But how can we better support a government that actually can distribute those basic services? What role does good relations with your neighbor mean, and what does free flow of information, data, etc., mean for improved cooperation at the national level, at the local level, but also at the regional and international level? I mean, so some of the things that we are already doing and in terms of improving water security, and as one, I'm just giving a couple of examples here, promoting water service delivery in Baghdad. That's just one thing that the World Bank does, strengthening large water utilities to take an active part in Ebola emergencies. But this is also something we're trying to do, and we're working here in partnership often with humanitarian actors to strengthen the ability of utilities to function, even though they may be in the middle of conflict. There's examples from, for example, Yemen, but also in other places. So those are some of the things that we're already working on, but we want to see how can we do it in a better way, than how can we building on that and leveraging that for further peace efforts. I want to stop there. I know I've run a little bit over time, and then hand back to you, Audrey. Happy to take any questions that may come, either in the chat or afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Anders. And indeed, I could specify that if participants have questions, they can place it in the chat, and we will have time to take one or two questions at the end. And good to know also, Anders, that you are available if there are questions for you. And I think it is, highlighting this compounding risk also remind us the necessity, as did Martin also, to actually engage with other sectors and to look also broader than our own water sector. Thank you for that. And I think it is very well setting the scene for the discussion, because obviously what we want to do also through the Stockholm Water Week is to engage with each other, to also see how we can capitalize on each other and build further what we all try to do and to achieve. So we will now turn to a panel discussion for which I have the great pleasure to invite three speakers. The first one being Daisy Kosgei, who is a Senior Project Officer at International Alert and member of the Water, Peace and Security Partnership. Welcome, Daisy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our second panelist will be Caroline Pellaton, who is Operation Director at the Geneva Water Hub. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
And finally, we have Iba Aboualrob. I'm sorry if I do not pronounce it very well. And Iba is WASH coordinator at IFRC, and more specifically for the MENA region. Hiba is joining us by phone due to some difficulties with the connection. So we hope that she can hear us and that we will hear her also clearly. But the tests were positive this morning, so it should work. And perhaps we can just hear from Hiba if she is with us. Hiba, can you hear us?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so to start with this discussion, I would actually like to ask you all one similar question, being actually from your own perspective. Can you just tell us a little bit how you work on this nexus between water and peace? And if you can illustrate with a short example so that the participant also understand the type of work that we represent in this panel discussion. And let me start with you, Caroline.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to take part in this interesting discussion. So at the Geneva Water Hub, we have accompanied the Global High-Level Panel on Water and Peace, which published its report in 2017, and which really contributed to strengthening the global architecture to prevent unresolved water-related conflicts, to facilitate the role of water as an important factor of building peace and cooperation, and to enhance the relevance of water issues in national and global policy making. And our mission at the Geneva Water Hub is really embedded in the recommendations of this report, which is to advance the use of water for peace, humanitarian, the water for peace in the humanitarian development and peace building efforts. And I would like just to bring the focus a little bit more on the protection of water in armed conflict. We've seen also in the presentation by Anders that armed conflict disrupt water systems in diverse ways with negative consequences from basic service provision to development efforts. And the impact of armed conflict on water and other essential services like healthcare, sanitation, energy, education is severe and poses grave immediate and long-term humanitarian, development, and environmental challenges. And as water connects across sector, we can also see that in conflict, it's the last thing that warring parties cooperate over. And one example can be found in the transboundary water cooperation sector, which aligns with international law. And this transboundary water cooperation can really be used as a foundation for diplomacy, even in conflict. And that was the case with the Senegal River Basin Development Organization in 1999, when the diplomatic dialogue was ruptured, or as a way to build regional stability post-conflict, as was the case with the International Sava River Basin Commission. And to advance the protection of water, I'd just like to introduce the Global Alliance to Spare Water from Armed Conflict that we jointly initiated with the Republic of Slovenia and Switzerland. And this will this alliance will really build a community of state and non-state actors. It aims to be inclusive and really dedicated and committed to protecting water from the impacts of armed conflict, to reduce civilian harm, promote respect for international law, and build resilience to prevent and recover from humanitarian crises. And we will achieve this to three main activities: producing and disseminating knowledge to deepen our collective understanding of the long-term consequences of the impact of armed conflict on water and their broader effects on livelihoods, health, and the environment, from a local to a cross-regional perspective, and bringing the topic to regional basin organizations and riparian countries to preserve water from pollution and ensuring that the basic human right to water is respected. Second, by promoting partnerships, we're engaging with key stakeholders and other coalitions to share lessons on effective protection at international, national, and local levels. And finally, the Alliance will advocate to influence policy, building on our knowledge to inform decision-making and policy processes aiming at mitigating civilian harm. And we will work to develop the necessary instruments to protect water from the effects of armed conflicts with all our partners. In short, we aim to end the weaponization of water, a recommendation that was also put forward during the Bandung Spirit Water Summit, which took place during the World Water Forum in Bali, in engaging in a dialogue with former heads of state and yours and many other actors in the segment on water in peace. And I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Maybe a quick question also, because you say you act also for water in armed conflict. Are there specific countries where Geneva Water Hub is active at the moment? And do you also have action on the ground?
So we do not have action on the ground, but we are working with partners that are implemented in countries. We have in the Global Alliance for now, we have the UNICEF Watch Cluster, UNICEF, sorry. We've got Pax for Peace. We have Geneva Call, which enables dialogue with non-state actors. We work closely with the Federation, with the International Committee of the Red Cross. And this alliance is in a building status, so it will grow. And the idea is to really engage in some specific case studies in Yemen. We will start with Yemen, but looking at other countries like Gaza, of course, Ukraine, Burkina Faso, Sudan, to really build the knowledge on what is happening, what is the level of destruction, pollution on water, what are the instruments, the legal instruments that can be applied, were not applied, why, and how can we do better?
Okay, Thank you. And I think we will have time to come back to that later on. Okay, I will turn to Daisy. Daisy, how about you? So how do you work on this water and peace nexus?
Thank you, Audrey. Good morning, everyone, and good morning from Kenya. Thank you to the organizers for this opportunity. I'm also excited to share some of the insights and lessons from Kenya, and particularly, of course, focusing on our work in Lake Turkana Basin, which is around the arid landscapes of northern Kenya. Maybe I should also speak around our regional work. Of course, it spans in Ethiopia, Kenya, Iraq, and Mali. In Kenya, International Alert leads the coordination work together with the Wetlands International and Institute of Water Education, IHE. So at the regional level, of course, our water peace and security works seeks to support stakeholders in identifying and understanding the water-related risks. We do this by supporting timely, informed, and inclusive actions for conflict prevention. And we work through an integrated approach by leveraging data, science, training, and also dialogue. So, of course, let me speak a little about Kenya, because that's where our on the ground work we are currently working. So in Turkana County, of course, it borders the cross-border regions in the Karamoja cluster, which is predominantly inhabited by pastoralists. So the region where we work borders South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Uganda. And we have pastoralist communities that are, of course, mostly marginalized. And some of the other challenges that the region is facing, we are struggling with issues to access to water, poverty, infrastructure, insufficient infrastructure, and also inadequate governance in relation to water. So while we were starting our work, of course, in the region, we did a water related conflict analysis, and we established some of the challenges across that region. One of them, of course, is the resource-based conflicts between pastoral communities that traverse the region in search of water and pasture. Additionally, we've noticed that there's a lot of issues around weak water governance, which is one of the challenges. The other part, of course, is the conflicts around the Lake Turkana. Because the Lake Turkana provides essential resources, including fish, for communities in Kenya and Ethiopia. And so we have seen a lot of competition of resources of fish within that region, of course, influenced by other ecological factors such as fluctuating lake levels. Now, let me speak about 3 approaches that we've used in our work on water, peace, and security. And I'll talk about our dialogue approach. I've mentioned, of course, that we have the pastoralist communities within this northern region. And one of our profound ways we've seen water cooperation contributing to peace is through dialogue. So once these pastoralists, of course, are moving across the region, whether they're crossing to Uganda or Ethiopia or South Sudan, they cause conflicts as they access water and pasture. But what these communities have done, and through this water peace and security project supporting dialogue, we have seen the communities coming up with rotational agreements to access, there's a major river called River Nakua. So the pastoralist communities have come up with a great rotational agreement where they negotiate on what time they're supposed to enable their cattle to access water, and also the communities around the water. So we've seen water is being seen as a peace dividend, and also has actually ensured that we have a regional stability and had also reduced some of the conflicts within that region. Now, the other bit, of course, is a collaborative sector approaches that we've supported within the ministries. So we have, of course, the Ministry of Water, the Ministry of Peace. We've supported joint coordination meetings, bringing together both sectors to address issues around water and conflicts. So they've aligned their work plans, they're calling each other into meetings. So this has also resulted to addressing some of the water-related conflicts. We've also supported some of the capacity building by providing training, developing targeted capacity building programs for the ministries, the Ministry of Water, the Ministry of Peace, stakeholders across the region. And finally, of course, we have a data-driven approach where we've been able to consolidate some of the water mapping exercise done across the region together with the conflict mapping, which has enabled to provide decision makers with critical insights around water conflict issues. So maybe I could stop there and back to you, Audrey, and happy to answer any question from the panel. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Daisy. And obviously, I mean, we have quite a few questions also about that. But first, I will turn to Hiba and asking you actually the same question. How do you work on this water and peace nexus? And can you illustrate with an example for us?
Indeed, we have established a water, peace, and security program. I just need to check if I'm coming through clearly.
We can hear you. Yes, thank you.
Great. So yes, we have this well-established program on water, peace, and security, and IFRC has been aiming to address the intricate challenges posed by the water security nexus, and that comes by leveraging the comprehensive humanitarian development and peace approach. The main objective of the program is to mitigate the compounding effects of water stress on stability and humanitarian crisis and fragile regions. It's really very important to us to integrate the humanitarian action, the sustainable development, and peace building efforts. We have been, we actually in the stage of kicking off a regional or multi-country program in the MENA region involving 3 countries that are Yemen, Jordan, and Iran, focusing specifically at the components of this program. And it's been done in collaboration with COICA. We have set very solid plans for a 10-year scale-up program in other regions, considering the multiple fragilities in the different regions, being conflicts, resilient systems, climate change. Sorry. Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. IFRC has been really emphasizing on the throughout building this program on the dual role of water as both actually potential conflict driver, but at the same time a cooperation catalyst if properly managed through the right tools and the right integrated water management plans. It's because IFRC works in close coordination and collaboration with local communities, so it's very important to deepen the community level of understanding on the water conflict nexus, actually address issues at the root, addressing the causes and the root causes. And we're trying to do this by building our interventions around 3 tiers: the proper understanding of the initiative at the community level, the learning and the preparing of the people on the different aspects of what does it mean to have water as a catalyst of either conflict or peace, and then mobilizing through access to resources, considering the triggers, and we've been trying to do this while establishing a solid set of tools that are both scientific but also adapted at the local community level.
Thank you, Hiba. And because you will start with this new program specifically focused on water and peace, does it mean that you identified a gap in, in this, in the current programs that you had? Why actually adding a new program specifically focused on that?
Because we actually, yes, indeed, we realized how it's pretty deep-rooted, the conflicts around water in the MENA region. Out of the 22 states, 19 do suffer from scarce water and scarce water levels, and therefore the issues that are rising from water conflicts are becoming more and more. In the region, most of the countries in the region are sharing transboundary water basins, and many of them do have agreements, yet many of these agreements are not respected. So it's not only within country, but also it's cross-regional.
Wonderful, thank you. Maybe another question for you, Hiba, because this session is also about innovation to action, and the development of innovative tools and services is also at the heart of several of our programs at the Water, Peace and Security Partnership. And could you tell us about how IFRC is integrating this innovation at the local level, but also how this is embraced by the local populations?
It's really important at this stage to embrace the fact that the world we're living in right now is a lot different from when water systems were established and put into city contexts, and therefore the solutions that were valid previously may no longer be valid. They may not be actually addressing the contemporary problems. We have multiple reasons for this. We have the spike in population growth. We have the demographic shifts. We have the sizable number of conflicts within the region, the poverty, and the degrading environment, which actually leads us to the definition of innovation. What does it mean? It's basically the process of bringing new ideas, methods, products, and services for as solutions to provide a significant positive impact. We're looking here at transforming creative concepts for tangible outcomes, and we're talking basically about efficiency and effectiveness. It's important to highlight that communities, depending on their level of resilience, do implement innovative techniques along the way in their daily lives, and this is not a new concept for them. It's just that it's usually challenged by the level of resilience in the community and the capacity to adapt and evolve. It's important to highlight, as my colleague previously said, that usually the issues around water do stem from three main reasons. It's either too much water, too little water, or contaminated water. So how do we build the capacity of the communities around innovative approaches? And when we talk about innovation, it doesn't necessarily mean reinventing a wheel or coming up with a completely new idea, although it is valid. It sometimes means that the people do have their resources to build the technology they need within their own capabilities, within their own resources, within their own capacity. It's important at this stage to mention that when it comes to dealing with communities, what matters to them is to have a dignified access to safe water. And how can we actually implement that when we consider reducing wasted water and increase the efficient use? Considers the increased availability of clean water by reducing the contamination to water resources. And for this, there's been lots of technologies. Many of them are actually very much welcomed by the communities. There has been recently multiple applications for AI in water management and in water schemes in general. It can be useful in detecting potential water supply failure before it actually happens. It also considers enhancing the distribution water network, have accurate mitigation and prediction flooding and drought that are becoming more and more apparent in the region, but also globally. Water sector is one of the most significant users to the energy sector. So how do we bring about efficient use of energy for the water sector? And the applications, the list of applications can go long.
Thank you, Iba. And indeed, coming back also to that, necessity of engaging with other sectors such as energy. And I fully agree, with what you said, not reinventing the wheel, but actually bringing innovation as new ideas for positive impact. And Daisy, maybe you can reflect on that also for your work in Kenya. How is this about bringing new ideas for positive impact and the role of innovation?
Yeah, thank you. I think maybe I should also speak around how we work at the national level, at the county level, that we are not innovating any new ideas, but incorporating what is already being done by other actors as well. So for instance, in Kenya, our work at the county level, when we started the water, peace and security work at the county level, the already existing tools that are being used have been developed by other partners. But one of the tools that we saw that water, peace and security can support, given that the water-related conflicts around Turkana is mainly around the groundwater. So we decided to focus our tools supporting the Ministry of Water in coming up with a water mapping tool, and together with a conflict mapping tool. So these two tools will be further shared into a dashboard. So we also, apart from that, of course, we have there's another tool that is being led by the Institute of Water Education by looking at some of the hydrological modeling of the Lake Turkana. And so examining how the lake levels and the runoff process of the Omogive is impacting the lake level variations in the county. So these tools is very useful for the Kenya Maritime, also the Ministry of Fisheries, because some of the conflicts that we've seen, especially within the fishing sector, as the fishermen across Kenya and Ethiopia, as they access the lake, they have as they access the resource in the lake, they have conflicts. So I think those are some of the innovative tools that already are in existence with other partners, but also just supporting at the county level and ensuring that in future these tools would be better placed for the decision makers to plan. Thank you. Back to you, Audrey.
Thank you, Daisy. Thank you. And I think you join also what Hiba said by saying we also want to look at what is already there. So not reinventing the wheel, but trying to bring it one step further. Turning to Caroline now, because obviously we hear from Iba and Daisy from their work also on the ground. And obviously involving local population is often a crucial aspect, so that they can also be involved and have a say in how their own water is managed. How is it for you in this complexity also to work, perhaps also illustrated by your work for water in armed conflict? How do you, try to work also more multi-level?
Thank you, Audrey, for your question, and I'll share some of the experience that some of my colleagues been focusing more on at the Geneva Water Hub. And I think we've heard throughout the week since I'm here the importance to increase the awareness at the highest level of including the concerns of communities when talking about transboundary issues. And a river often serves as state borders in regions that are far from the capital and where national services are not present. And for communities living along those rivers, those state boundaries have no real relevance in their practical daily life. And in this, the role of river basin organization is crucial in bridging the gap. So I'll share two examples. The first one is between the Benin and Togo, who formed the Mono Basin Water Authority in 2014 to allow for collaborative management and development on the shared Mono River Basin. And a cooperation program between the West African Economic and Monetary Union and Switzerland is focusing particularly on this river basin to further explore how to strengthen governance with the cross-border cooperation program, which looks from the local to the national level. And identity coherence varies along the river, and it's not possible to plan effectively water cooperation without taking into consideration these various identities and preoccupations. Another example was the Voices of the River Pathway to Peace that we initiated with the Polo Dakar and the Senegal River Basin Development Organization, along with the International Secretariat for Youth. And this project, this initiatives really sought to address and prevent local vulnerabilities by fostering a meaningful dialogue among the Senegal River Basin Development Organization leadership, local communities, experts in water, land, and economic management, as well as including influential artists and cultural figures. And the initiative focused really on addressing the critical challenges, particularly about youth employment, the representation of local interest in the OMVS decision-making processes. And it comprised two key components. The first one, cultural, by enabling the creation of a symphony by artists from the 4 countries within the Senegal Basin, the production of short films, the organization of cultural workshops for the youth. These artistic endeavors really aim to capture and amplify the voices and stories of the communities along the river. The socio-economic component brought experts together with the local communities to lead discussions on strategies on how to support local entrepreneurship, culminating in a competition that invited youth from the basin to present innovative projects focused on local livelihoods. And this dialogue and reflection was based on the outcomes of 2 major cultural forums in the Senegal Basin, which also hosted discussions and sessions with the communities on the socio-economic development. Overall, the major outcome of this initiative is the strategic concept for the creation of a multi-stakeholder participatory platform embedded within the Senegal River Basin Development Organization, designed to promote local entrepreneurship, promote job creation and social cohesion. And this platform, which is envisioned as the blue platform, is now being further developed towards operationalization through a joint engagement with our partners, Polo Dakar, IPAR, and the International Network of Basin Organizations. And this initiative has really laid the groundwork for sustainable development and social cohesion within the Senegal River Basin. And it's our collective responsibility to ensure that these efforts continue to flourish for better resilience of the use of water and for the better development from a local to a transboundary level and for peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you. Very, very interesting example. And I think it's also good to see how that evolves from the different levels. Daisy shared also her experience from Kenya and the Lake Turkana, where the action at the local communities was also evolving more and more towards transboundary. So thank you for sharing your experience. Seeing the time, I will maybe check if there are questions, 1 or 2 questions in the chat. Perhaps Sundus, do we have any question? If you could help us on that.
Yes, we had 3 questions, but like I'm going from down, and we can consider like it's there is a
one.
one. I'm sorry to all the audience because the time concern we could have one question, and I can read one of them.
Yes, please.
Yes. Considering that water is an important aspect of enhancing national and global peace and security, how can we bring in non-water investment sectors on water security innovations, such as security-related sector? Are there examples across the globe taking approach to addressing water security issues?
Thank you. Does one of the panelists want to react? So on this enhancing national and, sorry, or how do we bring water-intensive sectors on water security interventions? Perhaps Hiba wants to react to that. I'm not sure if we still have Hiba with us. Well,
you may repeat, please?
The question, please.
Yes, Hiba, the question is, how can we bring non-water intensive sectors on water security interventions?
Can you hear the question or not, Hiba?
I'm challenging you maybe a bit too much, Hiba, sorry. The sound is perhaps not great. Maybe one of the other panelists wants to take the question. Yeah, Caroline, please go ahead.
I think it's really, I mean, we can't, and we've seen during this week, we can't just talk about water among water experts or water users, and it's really more and more crucial now to break the silos and to really engage with all the other sectors globally. And I think addressing some specific topic, but ensuring that you open the dialogue to other experts from different sectors is the best way to approach this question, and then to engage them in the dialogue. And I can share some just quick example of how we work. For example, we had a topic on the how to use water as a vector for peace in the Sahel region. And for that, we invited a whole range of experts from news to authorities working in different sectors to have a sort of like confidential discussion over a few days on really how can we do better, how can we use the resources to work with local communities, authorities, and foster peace and regional development. So yeah, that would be a recommendation.
Thank you. And the energy sector has been mentioned indeed earlier. I think food sector is also extremely important to engage with. Thank you for that. Seeing the time, we will not take other questions, but I really invite also the speakers, the panelists to perhaps answer also via the chat if there are questions that are more specifically addressed to them. Okay, seeing the time, I do not want to take too long anymore, but just one question that I would really like to ask you to answer with 1-2 words maybe. The topic, the water topic of the United Nations this year was really making also this bridge between water and peace. And I think that really encourages also to look at what we have learned so far and how we can also take that further in our work. So maybe in 1 or 2 words, what would be the key lessons, what you have learned from the past and that you think is really important to share with our audience? What maybe like just, what do you want to share on this topic? Caroline,
Yeah,
perhaps I can start with you because you're still on my screen.
1-2 word, that's a challenge. I think we need to share water, like water cooperation is not enough in itself. We need to share water intelligently and fairly using the international law, and we need to spare water from armed conflict. I think those would be the two key takeaway message. And water cannot be, we need to be careful between the need to put water at the highest political level in the topic of discussions, knowing that water cannot be apolitical. So, but we really need now to continue building on the UN 2023 Water Conference, on the Bandung Spirit Water Summit, to really continue this dialogue all together.
I would love to have another session on the last topic you bring, but let's not reopen the whole discussion. Daisy, maybe for you, what would you like to share with the audience on what you have learned and what we should take into consideration for the future?
Yeah, thanks, Audrey. I think one of the questions addressed something that I wanted to highlight around a multi-sectoral approach, where we really need to bring on board everyone. The way we bring in the water sectors, we should bring all the other sectors in terms of addressing some of this water conflict peace nexus approach. And I think there's a lot to learn, just the way we bring politicians on board. It's good to also bring on board peace building actors talking together with the water sector actors. So back to you, Audrey.
Thank you. Bringing everyone on board. I think it's a great message. Hiba, I don't know if you can hear us and still answer this final question.
I do hear you. I'm not sure if you do hear me.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I would contribute maybe in more than 2 words that if we want to do it, let's do it properly. We need to have a comprehensive understanding of the water systems with a proper analysis. A proper governance structure is also needs to be analyzed, and that goes hand in hand with the conflict pathways. Conflict around water is not a new topic. It's just that the resources are becoming less and less, and therefore we see more of conflict around water becoming more apparent, and it implies that an action needs to be taken. Over.
Thank you, Hiba, and great that we could have you with us until the end of this session, and also great to engage more in a collaboration together with IFRC in the partnership that has been launched earlier this week. I see that someone from the chat was also willing to share his own message, get out of bubble and ask uncomfortable questions. Yes, I think we should do that. I would like perhaps to share also quickly my insight, because I will be honest, when I've seen the list of panelists, it was coming from quite different aspects, also humanitarian, transboundary, very local. But I think it is really great to engage with each other and to also see, like, to understand better what do we do and what can we do together also to ensure that we are more impactful. So I would really like to thank the panelists for sharing their insight. And I will now turn to Yassir Mohammed, who is the lead of the Water, Peace and Security Partnership. And I would like to actually ask him to reflect on this session and to share some final words with us. Yassir, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Audrey, and also thank you to the speakers and to the panelists. It has been super exciting sessions to me because it really reflects how complex can be this water security nexus and how it can bring the two sides of the coins, as Anders mentioned. It can be a crisis, but at the same time, it can be an opportunity. And I would like just to reflect it, water security issues can be of different natures. We have seen from Daisy the local context between the herders and farmers, and how the good understanding of the socioeconomics at the very local level need to be understood, not to reinvent the wheel and to find a solution in that context. But at the same time, we have also listened to Caroline addressing transboundary context and how it can be super sensitive politically and create huge instability. And at the same time can also be a source of cooperation and benefits for all riparians in a transboundary river context. And we have seen also the different contexts, the water in armed conflicts. And she mentioned the case of Karakova Dam in Ukraine, other dams, and how it can really complicate the security issues in those contexts. Last week, there was a dam in eastern part of Sudan has been washed away, more than 60 people killed, created more pressures to displace people from armed conflicts. So, and then we hear also the humanitarian context from Hiba and how it can also be a source of this conflict had been a source of armed conflict somewhere, but it can also trigger conflicts on those pressurized services of humanitarian watch. To me, the most important lesson is how to define this nexus between water and security, because it can be very complex, and how to understand that so that you can really propose the right solution for that. And I have seen this conference is an excellent opportunity to raise the awareness and also to enhance the understanding, and so that people can continue in the future with more kind of complementarity and synergies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yassir, for this reflection on the session and for finishing also exactly on time. So I think we can liberate also the audience on time. And I know that some of you will still be at the Stockholm Water Week today. So although this session was online, we would welcome you also to continue sharing your thoughts with each other and also with the group organizing this session. So perhaps see you at the Stockholm Water Week today. And otherwise, I wish you a great day and a very good end of the week. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.